We're going to finish off this session with Amanda from B4GAL, who's one of the projects at a more advanced stage, so it'll be very interesting to see where they've got to. So the floor is yours, Amanda.
Somebody asked me earlier why we were called B4GAL. It actually stands for Broadband for Glen Capel and Lowther. And because one of our big inspirations has been the Barn, or B4RN project down in Cumbria, we adopted that into our name. So it's B4GAL, but we call it B4GAL. Our project beginnings probably go right back to 2010, when we had a small amount of National Lottery money that we used to survey the local area and to produce a local community-led plan. And connectivity did come out as an issue in 2010, but it was considered to be just too big for the community. That's for government to do, we can't do that. So although it actually showed up quite high up, we really said it's out with our control, we can't do anything about it. It carried on like that until last year, in the end of February, beginning of March, when one of my neighbours put a little slip of paper through 10 doors, which is, I live in a very tiny hamlet, and she said, can we all meet? There's things we need to talk about. And so out of the 10 pieces of paper that she'd put through, 8 people turned up for a meeting. And she was talking about, what do we need to do? Have you noticed how many for sale signs there are down in the nearest village? Everything's really awful, what can we do? And broadband again came out as one of the biggest things that people needed, and one of the reasons that people were thinking of leaving the area. So from there, we said, well, we're a tiny hamlet. Let's go and talk to some of our neighbours. We started the broadband project in June of last year. And by October, we'd actually got a working group of the Glen Capel and Lowther Development Group that covers 9 villages in rural South Lanarkshire and Dumfries and Galloway. Our biggest public meeting has had about 106 people in it. So we've started off from where we were too small. We're now talking about much bigger numbers. This is where we are, that sort of pinky blur just north of Dumfries. And it's 9 villages, very, very small. The entire population is about 2,000 people in the whole area. I'll tell you a little bit more about it. Interestingly enough, for those of you in the Highlands, we actually have Scotland's highest village in our project, which is Wanlock Head. So that's not normal for down our way. So we're 9 villages. It's very much moorlands, settlements along the River Clyde. The area of the 9 villages is divided right up the middle by the West Main Line Railway, then next to that, the River Clyde, and next to that, the M74. So although historically these 9 villages have been part of a community, we've had a lot of infrastructure that goes through us, which doesn't help locally, but we've not had any infrastructure that's really pulling us together until this project. So 400 square kilometres of mainly moorland, 9 villages, about 700 houses. Employment is a major issue. Most people work outside the area, but there are very, very few high quality jobs, even with an hour's commute of the area. About 70% private home ownership, and the rest, some social housing, some holiday homes. We've got 4 BT exchanges serving the 9 villages. I'm sure that most of you recognise that little hut on the right-hand side as being a traditional BT telephone exchange. That one's actually in Crawford John. What we found is that even within the same village, there's massive discrepancies. So Elvenfoot, where I live, is actually an Activate exchange. That means there was an intervention to get us up even to the half meg that some of us currently get. It won't be upgraded any further beyond that. And we've got 2 of our exchanges that actually can manage 8 meg. But there's only about 6 houses that can actually get it, because the spread, if you look at the radius around these exchanges, it's about a 6-kilometre radius to the next exchange. And we all know that over copper, we can only deal with about 2 kilometres before we've got massive signal degradation. So we've got a lot of isolated homes with absolutely no connectivity at all. One of the first things that we did was start to talk with people. We were running meetings every week at one point. We were knocking on doors, we were putting leaflets through, we were putting posters up in the villages. We were getting quite a good turnout, and then my colleague Anne over there managed to do this incredible piece of community engagement work where we actually had teams of volunteers going door to door. They had to get somebody in. If they didn't get somebody in, they had to go back. If they didn't get somebody in the second time, they had to go back again. After the third time, we let them didn't manage. Right. But it meant that we got a really good picture of who really wants broadband in our area. Now, this is a piece of work that was done November, December, yeah? And since then, we've actually moved on and done more. We've done a lot of events as well. But you can see that the red was the not interested. The yellow is, well, I'm quite happy with what I've got now, but maybe. And the green was, I'm really interested, I want it, let me sign up, across the 9 villages. One of the things that we did fairly early on is we sat down to evaluate the technologies. Because yes, you've got to get the people to need it, but you've also got to know what technology you want to use. And we said, well, whatever we do, we know it's got to be super fast next generation access. We are not going to be marginalised, we're not going to be left behind. That happened to us the last time when people were first getting online. So this time, it's got to be next generation access. It's got to be sustainable. We've got to be able to afford to keep it going, because there'd be nothing worse than doing this project and then in a year's time having to tell people, sorry, we can't keep it going. I think resilience also was one of the things that we mentioned there, that it's got to be something that's easy for us to maintain. And it has to be future-proof. The way we were thinking is, do it once, do it right. We don't know where the money will come from down the road if we have to start replacing things. So we've got one chance, let's get it right. Those decisions basically said to us, we're going to do a fibre network. We're not going to do any interim measures. We're going to leap right in there. We talk to each other and went, do you know anything about fibre? No, not really. So with the help of Community Broadband Scotland, we hired a fibre consultant to work with us. We understood the local area really, really well. He understood fibre optic and network mapping. So it was like a match made in heaven, really. And very, very quickly, using the mapping that we'd already done, and then him doing a bit of site surveying, we produced these schematics, first of all, that gave us basic ideas of the distances between villages, where the backhaul might be, things like that, and then took that from there right into a detailed network map where we're continuously working on this, where we're actually got names and addresses and who's going to take the system. So our maps don't look like that anymore. We talked a lot earlier on about what the offering was. We have people paying for telephone, television and broadband internet access, paying between £100 and £150 in our area. So that sort of set our top pricing quite high. But then we said that we don't want to leave anybody out for economic reasons. So we will make sure that there is always going to be something that's equivalent to the BT offering, which in our area is about £16.99. So we're saying as long as it's no more than £20. So where we are at the moment, we've applied, we want to set up a company limited by guarantee with local people on the board of directors or the trustees, all profits to be spent within the community. It needs to be a sustainable business that creates local jobs and gives us all an opportunity for social and economic development, and hopefully to get some of these for sale signs into sold signs, because there has been a massive exodus from our area. Good news yesterday that the Office of the Scottish Charities Commissioner contacted me to say that he has just passed us our charitable purposes. So we're well on the way. And that's basically the project. We are now putting in the funding applications. Here's the bad news, this will make you laugh. 1.47 million is what we need to raise to do the project. So if you've got your checkbooks with you, I am taking donations. And if you've got other questions about the project later, I'd be delighted to talk about it some more.
Thank you very much, Amanda. I think we'll allow one question for Amanda, seeing the project's at such an advanced stage, and any help towards the 1.4 million, I'm sure Amanda would be very keen to speak to you. Any questions?
I'm just really interested to know, what is your projected cost per household? I mean, 1.47 million, how many households is that?
That is doing the 700 households in the network. The cost per household is really determined a lot by the geography. And ours is...
average cost?
Average cost is about 1,300. But that's inflated by the fact that we've got 10 houses that would cost 200,000.
Okay, thanks.